You know, it seems like I slowed down a little bit in January. But, I'm continuing to overwhelm myself. So let's talk about how I'm doing that with February. Hello, hello, hello. I am Pete. This is the Ponderings of Pete. And I talk about fantasy. I talk about sci-fi. I talk about some weird literary fiction books occasionally, as well as some classics. An odd smattering of things that happens to be mostly fantasy. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a like, give it a thumbs up, that whole stuff. If you want to see more, go ahead and subscribe. And there's a bell notification. Hit the bell thing, ring the bell. I don't know. Do all that stuff if you want to see more. Without further ado, let's get into the rest of the actual video that you came here for. Let's start off with a continuation of Malazan. That is the Path to Ascendancy. I started it last month in January, or this month, because technically it's the 30th when I'm filming. Just finished it like 10 minutes ago, actually. So this next one is Deadhouse Landing. Also by ESSLEMONT. I'm excited to continue this. It actually looks like book 4 is going to come out this year. I don't remember when, but it'd be super interesting if I could get to book 4 in April, when I would schedule it if I could. But we will see. You will see that in further developments, possibly. Next up, we have another second book in a series, and that is Royal Assassin by Robin Hobb. Reread Assassin's Apprentice last month. This is my second time reading Royal Assassin, and then I will be reading Assassin's Quest in March for the first time. Assassin's Apprentice was heartbreaking. Pain. And Royal Assassin gets more painful from what I remember. Lots of plots and interesting things and more exploration of the magic, but only subtly so. Threats from without the duchies. But yeah, I am really excited for this, getting back into it. I do really love these books. The two that I've read. And the art, I have the illustrated editions. The art is absolutely phenomenal as well, so that's always great. A new book that kind of came onto my doorstep yet. I haven't got the physical copy yet, but it is on its way, and that is Gurzil by I Anonymous. This is a self-published book. The author himself actually approached me. He was like, hey, you want to read this? And I was like, read the summary, and I was like, sure. This book seems to be on the long lines of some sort of historical fantasy. It takes place directly after the fall of the Roman Empire, and we have main characters as far north as the island of Britain. And it looks like there might be some King Arthur Pendragon going on. And then we also have a cult going on all the way down in Libya. I'm intrigued because there might be dragons. I don't know. I will tell you later. After I've read it, that is what I will be reading this month for self-published things. Not that I've been very good about reading Fred recently because it's being put to the wayside. But, sorry. But yeah, this is this author's debut novel. Book 2 should be coming out sometime this year. But I will definitely keep you updated on this and post a review of it once I am done. Following up, December, where I finished one of my favorite books of all time. This month, I plan on starting PIRANESI by Susanna Clarke. Now, I know this is a lot different from Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, and I've heard it's a lot different. So that intrigues me that a writer can write so many things that are different. So that's cool. She also has another book coming out. I can't remember what it's called, but it's definitely not the sequel we're looking for. But PIRANESI. I've heard so many interesting things about this book that it's very thematic, which is what I expect. The setting is most of the attraction. Basically, we have, I believe, an amnesiac that is trapped in a house, a mansion, that is basically a labyrinth of rooms. And it's probably magical and infinite. We don't know. But it's kind of a mystery-ish thing. It just sounds interesting, and it's Susanna Clarke, who is an amazing writer. I'm gonna get to it. Finally, I know a lot of people are waiting for me. This one is a continuation of an author, but not necessarily a series, because this is going to be a new release for this month. And that is The Age of Ash by Daniel Abraham. This one's just coming out. I've heard that it's, a first book for Daniel Abraham. People aren't necessarily enjoying it as a standalone book, but of course it's Daniel Abraham who does excellent work with series. I'm looking forward to this. I actually am about to finish The Dragon's Path, which is the first book in the Tiger and Coin series by him. I think Daniel Abraham just has very specific first book vibes. It's all about setup, and then the payoff tends to come in later books. It doesn't necessarily all come in that first book, but I think he does an excellent job of setting up, especially if you're fascinated with world building like I am. Age of Ash, I actually have no idea what it's about. I just know it's Daniel Abraham. I will tell you more in my wrap up for February, but we'll see. And then another continuing series. I have a lot of continuing series, but that's a theme just because I'm trying to continue series. Simply because January was starting a bunch of different series. So the next one up is The Sea Watch by Adrian Tchaikovsky. This is book 6, I believe. Yes, book 6 in, I almost said Empire Black and Gold, the Shadows of the App series. I just finished The Scarab Path this last month, of course. Absolutely loved it. Look to my wrap up because I'm going to gush about it a little bit in my wrap up, and I don't want to do that here. But I am excited. Because of how good Scarab Path was, I'm really excited to continue on with the series. And I think there might be a character that's a literal octopus in this one. I've seen like random character art, and there's a giant octopus in all of like the character art of like random, like there was this panorama of a bunch of different characters, and one of them was a giant octopus. And I was like, oh, dope. I think I know which book that one's introduced. So we might be going under the waves, guys. It's gonna be cool. If the cover art's anything to indicate, we probably are. So for this next one, I'm actually going to be reading 2 of the series in this month, which is a rare exception, but they're basically going to be a month apart. That is 5th Season and Obelisk Gate by N.K. Jemisin. I didn't manage to get to 5th Season this month of January because I kind of slowed down a lot. I got occupied by a very specific video game in these last 2 weeks that has taken up more time than I wish, or I would have gotten to it earlier. But first book I'm reading this month is 5th Season. Promise you that. Refer to my January wrap up or January TBR if you want to know more about this. This is one I know very little about going into, and I like that. All I know is that it has the second person as one of the POVs, which is totally unique and weird. And I'm like, yes, I'm digging it. Unique and weird, I'm going for it. But it's also a fantasy, and it's won our Hugo Awards, so it's kind of like one of those things like, it's probably going to be good. Next up, I think is this the only? No, this isn't the only series I'm starting. Next up is another read with Alan from Library of Alexandria. He's the one that's hosting the Shadows of the Apt read along. But I'm also going to be reading with him The Emperor's Blade by Brian Stavely. Is it just me, or I feel like there's a lot of Brians in publishing? Nope, that's not Brian. Brian McClellan. I swear there's more Brians. Brian Herbert. Maybe Brian's just a really common name or something. I don't know. No offense to any Brians out there. It's a great name. It just struck me for a hot second. But The Emperor's Blades, Chronicles of an Unhewn Throne. Another one I'm just going to do the read along because there were random elements that piqued my interest and then I forgot what they were. And it's a read along with people. So I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Overcommit. This is a trilogy, I believe, that we are starting. And the books aren't super, super long. I think they're under 500. So they're below average. Emperor's Blades. I feel like I should be telling you guys more about these books. Give me a sec. Okay, I just got back and read the cover blurb. And yeah, there's a big reason why. First of all, the Emperor's dead, and his kids have to fight for survival and figure out who assassinated him. One of them knows how to ride literal birds, like big birds, evidently. Like giant ravens or something. And then one of them has been training as a monk at a monastery. And I'm guessing this is fantasy monk, which means martial arts. So there's a few things in here that make me just interested in this book. I'm actually even more hyped to read it now because this video made me read the blurb again. Just somebody flying a bird. That sounds epic, right? And political intrigue. So check it out. Also, check out Alan's Discord down below if you want to join the read along for February. Open to everybody. Long awaited by probably only one person, but also long awaited by me. I'll be reading Mr. Mercedes by Stephen King. I have historically not read any King, and there's not that much of King that I'm interested in, simply because I am not a horror person, and I'm sorry. I probably will read some of his thrillers in the future. For instance, 11/22/63 is actually one I'm kind of hyped to get to eventually. I know it's a thick one, so eventually I have to probably fit that in for 2 months or something. Jake from The Bookish Drummer was the one that, is probably the only other one that's excited for this. because this is a, how you say, prerequisite for us to meet, I have to read one of King's books, so that since Jake is such a huge King fan, it's like he has an entire channel that's mostly King content or something. Well, it's not mostly King content, but that's the biggest thing on his channel is his King rankings and stuff like that. It's a lot. So I'm gonna do it. Finally, bought this one a little bit back, and I slotted it into March, and then something else happened with a buddy read, so I switched it here. Time to read some King. Do I know what this is about? No, I don't. As you can tell, I have a trend of going into things kind of blank, which I kind of like. I like going into like, oh, this is a good series. And I'm like, okay, I trust you. Dives in without looking. Last one, finally, is my Star Wars read of the month, and that is Tales of the New Republic. This is an older short story collection from the Legends canon, or the Expanded Universe canon. This is one of the first little sets of short stories that came out. I believe the other ones would probably be Tales of Lando Calrissian and Han Solo Adventures probably were first. This is an excellent, time to educate myself and actually look at the publishing date. So, this book was published in 1999. So, it was published later than I thought. So, this was only a year or 2 years before Phantom Menace came out. The EU was gripped by the post-Return of the Jedi Golden Age, I would say. So, we have so many good series, so many interesting series. This was, you had so many interesting plot lines where it was the Thrawn trilogy. There are a few other ones that I remember fondly. I remember kind of liking the Jedi Academy trilogy, even though, some people didn't really like it. But this is a bunch of sci-fi authors coming and writing a bunch of short stories for Star Wars. So I'm interested in seeing how this goes, seeing if any of them go a little bit Star Trek-y or anything like that. Crystal Star did, evidently. And finally, the last book on my list, book number 12, Infinite Jest. I'm probably a little bit farther behind than I should be on this book, so I'm probably going to kick it into gear in February, try to read so many pages a day. Reading this book is definitely interesting the second time around. I haven't gotten past the part where I was about 200 pages in, and I'm about 100 pages in, because I feel like I'm noticing things more, and I think it's a combination of I'm rereading stuff, but I think Malazan and reading Malazan really affected me and how I read, because Malazan is so detail oriented that my brain is just grown into this puzzle thing. Even with Malazan, I didn't put everything together, but putting together even some of the things in Malazan is an achievement. So going over Infinite Jest and being able to notice little details and being like, oh, let's calculate out where the years are, because it roughly starts in 2000-ish, and being able to look through the details and start putting together pieces and trying to put together a timeline, put together just why things are significant, because things seem random, but a lot of them also are more significant than it seems at first, which is super interesting to me. Yeah, I'm having a better time. I'm less, intimidated isn't the right word. I'm less freaking out, if that makes any sense, at how weird it is, and more just enjoying the weirdness and paying attention and trying to find the structure to it. Definitely very interesting. Trying to put some thoughts, at least in my Discord, as I read it. I think there's one other guy who's started to read along with me, which is dope. I wouldn't expect many people to read this just because it's so different. I don't mean that to be like, oh, nobody's going to read this. I don't think most people would enjoy reading this. And because of that, I wouldn't recommend most people read this, because it is so weird. Yeah, it's one of those books. Anyways, if you want more thoughts, ask me in the Discord or whatever. Speaking of, I have a Discord. Check that out below. Yeah, that's everything I have. That's all 12 books. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to get some sleep, because that's super important. Remember that you're awesome. So...